Paul, you're up. Hot take.
All right. Well, the buzzword around real estate nowadays is, why do we need to be realtors? Why do we need NAR? Why do we need to be this 3-tiered system? And I think that my hot take is this industry would not exist without NAR. We cannot do this without them.
Interesting. I think a lot of people.
And I have everybody staring at me right now. So this is.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, I'm just processing it.
Well, we had a conversation.
But you're right. There's tons of people these days that's a lot that people are talking about. They're unnecessary.
They're not doing anything for us. What do we get from it?
Except handling multi-billion-dollar lawsuits.
The lawsuits. I mean, that's a big one. If you don't talk about anything else, but we had a conversation earlier. This was probably last year. When you had a little bit of trouble with another realtor, and you were saying like, well, if we didn't have if we weren't going through NAR, blah, blah, blah. And I said, we wouldn't have the code of ethics. We wouldn't have our contracts. We wouldn't have pretty much the structure that we have right now. When I mentioned to you, like, well, they could have done this. And you go, no, they can't. They can't do that. I was like, no, NAR says they can't do that. If we don't have NAR, all of the processes that we follow right now go out the window. All of the protections that we have go out the window. I
think the protections for consumers is probably the biggest thing, because realistically, we could get our own contracts. We could do our own stuff, and really, like, people would fall off, like, just like capitalism. They wouldn't make it. But I think the protection for the consumers with, like, the code of ethics is important.
Well, just think about it, though. There's no back and forth now. Now it's us finding our own lawyer, having a lawyer write up contracts, them going back and forth through lawyers. And we know lawyers just bump the prices up. Everything would get way more expensive. But we have a lawyer
like make contracts for us just like we have now.
Yeah, I think
within the rules that we've set up in our industry, though. If all those rules go away.
Yeah, really, NAR was established originally to up the bar, because it was willy-nilly before NAR stepped in. And it's been 100 plus years now. But they stepped in to bring some uniformity to our profession, to being a realtor. And so with that uniformity, they created some structure. They created the code of ethics. And the code of ethics is something that we adhere to and that we self-police as realtors. And the question came up when we were talking this last time was, okay, now that this lawsuit has played in and they're trying to, decouple commissions and all that, which is totally fine. But what beyond that, what's the relevance now? They have to continue to stay relevant. And as a trade association, we've been very relevant for a lot of years, and with lobbying, with all these other things to protect homeowners' rights. But then my point was, I think that people are going to start questioning if there's not relevance being brought down from the top. Like, what are we doing? Because you're absolutely right, Aspen. You can go out, we can go get an attorney. An attorney can create a form one time and use it over and over and over again. And that's what they do on the East Coast. You have to have an attorney involved to close a transaction.
Texas too, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so they're already being, intermingled into the business process. So then the question becomes, with the, advent of Zillow and Realtor.com and some Redfin, some of these others, then what's the MLS? The database that holds the information. So what you're saying is really the structure that's the most important.
Yeah, the rules that the industry plays by.
Yeah.
If there's no rules, we're all playing different sports.
Yeah.
Then there's no process. There's no start and finish. It could just go any which way.
Yeah, I do like the structure side of that thing,
Mm-hmm.
The structure side of NAR and being a realtor. The other side of that is, if it wasn't in place, we would still self-police, because we would be like, you can't do that. I'm going to sue you. Mm-hmm. You can't do that. That's unethical or whatever else.
The only way to sue somebody is to have a rule that they've broken.
No, you can sue anybody for anything.
Yeah.
Well, usually there's a judgment saying that they've done something wrong.
There's so many vague things, though.
Sure, but you got to start out with an understanding. If there's no understanding, which is what I think NAR gives us, there's an understanding on how things should go. If it doesn't go that way, that's when we can start suing.
But it's not against the law to break the code of ethics.
Sure, that would be the self-policing. But if we lose NAR, then it goes to the legislature. And that's, I don't want that.
Yeah, none of us want that. I think it would have evolved some way. My point is that NAR needs to remain relevant because there's all these forces that are pushing in to say, hey, I've got access to the information. Why am I being forced to work through as a realtor? Well, the counter argument to that is, hey, we have structure, we have rules, we have ethics that are in line with what we would expect in a normal market. So interesting. So you think NAR, and I think most people would believe it. I do believe that NAR is still relevant and we wouldn't have the industry we would have today. I would agree with that.